Hi, welcome to the session number 6, video number 1, Project Schedule Management, an introduction. Project schedule management includes the processes required to manage the timely completion of the project. The project schedule management processes are 1. Plan schedule management. The process of establishing the policies, procedures, and documentation for planning, developing, managing, and executing and controlling the project. 2. Define activities. This is the process of identifying the documentation, the specific actions to be performed to produce the project deliverables. Third, sequence activities. This is the process of identifying and documenting the relationships among the project activities. What comes first, what comes next. So we'll do it until we complete all the activities. So you'll have a list of activities to be carried out within your project with the right sequence and relationships among these activities. 4. Estimate activity durations. This is the process of estimating the number of work periods needed to complete the individual activities within the estimated resources. Process number 5 is develop schedule. Develop schedule is the process of analyzing activity sequences, durations, resource requirements, and schedule constraints to create the project schedule model for the execution and monitoring and controlling. This is the central point which the project management team will look at during their project. The last process under schedule management is control schedule. Control schedule is a process of monitoring the state of the project to update the project schedule and manage changes to the schedule baseline. In this video, we are going to discuss few basic concepts that you need to know in terms of learning schedule management. Now let's have a look at a few key concepts. Project scheduling provides a detailed plan that represents how and when the project will deliver the products, services, and results defined in the project scope, and serve as a tool for communication, managing stakeholders' expectation, and as a basis for performance reporting. The project management team selects a schedule method such as critical path or an AGILE approach. Then the project-specific data such as the activities, plan dates, durations, resources, dependencies, and constraints are entered into a scheduling tool to create schedule model for the project. The result is a project schedule. The figure you see provides a scheduling overview that shows how the scheduling method, scheduling tool, and outputs from the project schedule management processes interact to create a schedule model. For smaller projects, defining activities, sequencing activities, estimating activity durations, and developing the schedule model are so tightly linked that they are viewed as a single process that can be performed by a person over a relatively short period of time. These processes are presented here as distinct elements because the tools and techniques for each process are different. Some of these processes are presented more fully in the practice standard for scheduling. When possible, the detailed project schedule should remain flexible throughout the project to adjust the knowledge gain increase understanding of the risk, and value-added activities. Now what you see on screen are some of the examples of project schedule presentations. On the left, what you see is an activity list that will list down all the activities of your project. In middle, bar chart. Together with your activity list, it will also show a bar chart representing the timeline for each and every activity. On the right, what you see is called a network diagram. Network diagram is a graphical representation of your activities in sequence to indicate the entire flow of your activities. Network diagrams are a better way of understanding all the activities involved in a given project and their sequence. Through network diagrams, we build up something called critical path, which is the bare minimal set of activities that have to be done in order to complete the project. In the future videos, we are going to learn about it in detail. Now let's have a look at some of the trends in schedule management. With high levels of uncertainty and unpredictability in a fast-paced, highly competitive global marketplace where long-term scope is difficult to define, it is becoming even more important to have a contextual framework for effective adoption and tailoring of development practices to respond to the changing needs of the environment. Adaptive planning defines a plan but acknowledges that once work starts, the priorities may change and the plan needs to reflect this new knowledge. Some of the emerging practices of project scheduling methods include, but are not limited to, alternative scheduling with a backlog. This is a form of rolling wave planning based on adaptive life cycles, such as the AGILE approach for product development. The requirements are documented in user stories that are then prioritized and defined just prior to construction, and the product features are developed using time-boxed periods of work. This approach is often used to deliver incremental value to the customers, and when multiple teams can concurrently develop a large number of features that have few interconnected dependencies. This scheduling method is appropriate for many projects as indicated by the widespread and growing use of adaptive life cycles for product development. The benefits of this approach is that it welcomes changes throughout the development life cycle. Second, on-demand scheduling. This approach, typically used in a Kanban system, is based on theory of constraints and pull-based scheduling concepts from lean manufacturing to limit a team's work in progress in order to balance demand against the team's delivery throughput. On-demand scheduling does not rely on a scheduling that was developed previously for the development of the product or product increments, but rather pulls work from a backlog or intermediate queue of work to be done immediately as resources become available. On-demand scheduling is often used for projects that evolve product incrementally. Now let's have a look at some of the tailoring considerations. Because each project is unique, the project manager may need to tailor the way project schedule management processes are applied based on the project requirements and the nature of the project that the project manager has to deal with. The considerations for tailoring include but are not limited to: number one, life cycle approach. In this approach, we ask what is the most appropriate life cycle approach that allows for a more detailed schedule. From the project management methodologies out there, such as PMBOK, Prince2, AGILE, and Lee, you may need to select the appropriate life cycle for your project development. Number two is resource availability. What are the factors influencing duration, such as the correlation between available resources and their productivity? So answer to this question will allow you to select the right tool and tailor it to your need. Number third tailoring consideration is project dimension. How will the presence of project complexity, technological uncertainty, product novelty, progress tracking such as earned value, percentage complete, red, yellow, green, or stoplight indicators impact the desired level of control? So answers to these questions will also help you to tailor the project scheduling approach to match your need. Number four is technology support. Is technology used to develop, record, transmit, receive, and store project schedule model or information, and is it readily accessible? For example, you may use MS Project for scheduling or some other tool, or you may do it manually. So it depends on your answer to this question. Is technology making sense in creating the project schedule for our requirement? Now let's have a look at some of the considerations for agile or adaptive environments. Adaptive approaches use short cycles to undertake work, review the results, and adapt as necessary, based on something called empirical process control, which is primarily based on three pillars: transparency, inspection, and adoption. These cycles provide rapid feedback on the approaches and suitability of deliverables, and generally manifest as iterative scheduling and on-demand pull-based scheduling, as discussed in the section on the key trends and emerging practices in project scheduling. In large organizations, there may be a mixture of small projects and large initiatives requiring long-term roadmaps to manage the development of these programs using scaling factors such as team size, geographical distribution, regulatory compliance, organizational complexity, and technical complexity. To address the full delivery life cycle for large enterprise-wide systems, a range of techniques utilizing a predictive approach, adaptive approach, or a hybrid of both may need to be adopted. The organizations may need to combine practices from several core methods or adopt a method that has already done so and adopt a few principles of practices of more traditional techniques. The role of the project manager does not change based on managing projects using a predictive development life cycle or managing in adaptive environments. However, to be successful in using adaptive approaches, the project manager will need to be familiar with the tools and techniques to understand how to apply them effectively. Generally, one key difference between a project manager for a traditional team or an adaptive team is that traditional project manager will base his leadership on the command and controlling, whereas a project manager from an adaptive team has to believe in collaboration, more towards servant leadership approach. You will be a facilitator, coach, and a servant leader than a manager who will micromanage the people. However, as discussed, you need to master the tools and techniques, the mindset around traditional and adaptive environments in order to be successful. As you see on screen, there are 6 processes involved in schedule management. In the upcoming videos, we are going to discuss each one of these processes to understand what's its role within schedule management process. So again, just to remember these 6 steps, let me just run through them. Number 1 process within schedule management is plan schedule management. This is where you plan all the activities, do the procedures, get ready to define the activities. The next process is define activities. Once you have a list of activities defined, the next thing is sequence in activities. In sequence activities process, you're going to list down all the activities for the given project in the right order. Also, you're going to define relationships between each and every project activity. Once you have done the activities, arrange them in the right relationship, the next thing is to estimate the activity duration. So you look at each and every activity, estimate them. Some teams estimates in hours. Adaptive teams estimate the activities using a technique called relative estimating. The next process, which is the 5th one, is the develop schedule. So this is the process where you put down a schedule for your project activities. Once you have the schedule ready, you are executing the project, you are trying to deliver the deliverables according to the project schedule. And at this point, you may observe and try to control schedule. So control schedule is the last process within schedule management. That is a process where you look at, observe what's happening, how the schedule is going. When you see any deviation, you're trying to control that according to what you have planned.